question is for Aurora. I hope it's not too personal, but I'm just really curious. What was your mother's response to your decision for the puja, and like, was she involved at all, or how did that go?
Thank you for your question. This is actually really interesting because before the talk, I was talking to one of my friends, Brandon, and he was asking me a bunch of other personal questions, and he asked, "Are you prepared to really share things like that?" And this talk puts me in a really vulnerable space. And I said, "Well, I agreed to have a talk, didn't I? So I kind of have to face up to it, and I think it'll actually help me evolve my own understanding of it." My mom has never told me not to do anything. Well, no, that's a lie. But she's always been very supportive if I really want to do something. And she could not find a space within herself to come to the puja, which I completely understood. But she didn't tell me not to do it, and she wasn't a negative influence when it was happening. And I think that's a step forward for us as a family, because that wasn't the case before. And I think that, as I said, that moment I had with my dad was something that I said generational trauma began to dissipate. And the puja was a step in the right direction in terms of forgiveness and family coming together. And I think that will hopefully eventually extend to my mom as well. Thank you for your question.
Hi. My question is for Kevin. That was a very powerful piece of writing. I was wondering, what was your process like for defining the feminine within your central character? Did you struggle with it writing as a male author? And basically, what were your motivations and inspirations for what essentially the female protagonist looks like?
Actually, my main inspiration from it was actually reading Japanese mythology. A lot of them have to do with scorned women. Like, for example, there's one called, I can't remember the name right now, but how it went was, there was this the servant and the lord of the house, and she used to take care of the plates, and he used to hide one of them. There was 10 plates, and eventually kind of drove her mad, and she found herself, how it goes. And it got kind of crazy. Like, she was found at the bottom of a well, and she turned into a bog, and kind of, right? But when I read that, I kind of got into our own folklore, but they're the usual ones with us, like Larger Blessing, Sukuya, and so on. And that particular folklore I talk about with the Japanese one, that was actually remade in it was used by a few other people in their stories. What I actually wanted to do is that, not popularize our folklore, but I think it's sort of underused. And when it's used, it's kind of the same thing over and over again. So what I wanted to do was take some of our folklore and angle it a little bit. It wasn't, the writing from the female perspective wasn't so much a challenge. The challenge was actually writing from a demonic perspective, like putting it like that. We're reading through our folklore, a lot of it has to do with scorned women. A lot of it has to do with obsession with men, for some reason. Obsession with men, like so on, like a lot of the female ones. I wanted to kind of give a little more depth to that, because when you hear about the folklore, you don't really hear much backstories to it. So that was the main challenge to it, like actually providing some depth and some backstory, and that was actually why I wrote about the true reality.
Good evening. Thank you very much for sharing the extraordinary talent. My question is for you, Aurora. What I wanted to ask you is something I'm looking in for myself, is how did you prepare mind and body to jump into a new experience, anticipated and scared at the same time? What did you do?
Thank you for your question. Well, typically before a puja, you are supposed to fast. And because it was my first experience, I wanted to do everything really well. So I think my aunt advised me to fast for 2 weeks. I ended up fasting for 2 months. I wanted to start aligning my body, my mind with the process of what I was going to do and what I was, the journey I was beginning. So my brother told me something really interesting the other day. He said monks eat one thing sometimes for weeks at a time to learn how their body reacts to it and what influence it has on them. And I thought that was really interesting because when I was fasting and I was eating pretty much the same thing all the time, I was in a particular frame of mind and I had never really fasted before in my life. So I felt that maybe fasting, I began to not only the process of fasting towards the puja, but understand the actual reason for it and to put your mind and body into a certain place was actually happening to me. And that made the process all the more interesting.
My question is mainly for Rabbi, but perhaps the rest of you could also consider it. I'm wondering about your choice to read from poetry tonight. And because I know you write poetry, but you also wrote your novels. So I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about genre and what each genre allows you to do, and perhaps why you chose to read from the poems tonight and not both, or not the novel.
Well, actually, I planned to read from both, but I ended up not doing so because I felt I didn't have time and I didn't want to change the beat. And I also wanted to do something more performative. So the novel needs a lot of explanation to bridge, the gap, and we need more time to sort of, I think it was a good choice because both of you read prose, so I guess poetry was just a bit different. But I often mix the different genres, and if you're asking to talk about them, well, some things take their own form. I strongly believe that, and sometimes it needs to be a poem, and sometimes it needs to be something else.
My question is for Shivani. Shivani, you read three different things in a sense. Just what made you decide on the relationship between the three, or to bring the three here tonight as three different goals? One seemed like a polemic manifesto. One was a story, very rich and deep and considered, and the first was your autobiographical entry. And, what was going on in your connection of the three?
Thanks, Gavin. The story kind of exists within its own fully functional world. And my concern was that it is slightly long, slightly detailed, and there's some things that might not be readily apparent, which is why I guess the manifesto that you mentioned at the end there was written just like 2 minutes in haste at the back on a little stand, just not to explain what's going on, because I don't believe in insulting readers' intelligence like that, or listeners' intelligence, but to make certain things apparent about where the story is coming from. And intersectionality in any kind of activism, any kind of thought process is very important to me. And I wanted to make that clear as well, that I think the only fully functional kind of feminism we can have, Indo-Caribbean or otherwise, has to be completely intersectional. And as for the autobiographical piece, I wanted to start with something that's very unguarded, and I think shares more of me personally than comes across readily in your writing, and also because I know that you're a fan of it and several other people are, and I kind of wanted to pay a tribute to the fact that you can create something that starts with you as an origin point and becomes much bigger than yourself, and then the responsibility stops being to you and your personal feelings about it, but to honor how it makes other people feel and think and how it resonates with them.
That's a really wonderful note to end this formal part of the evening. But please, whoever didn't get a chance to ask our writers a question, come up to them as we remain here and gather. But thank you all so much for sharing your work with us tonight.